Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the End Times Diaries. I hope you will join our journey to get my books made into cinematic film on the big screen by visiting a couple of my pages. www.theendthebook.com, my book website for all you need to know in these end times as described by the Bible, and also my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/theendtimesdiaries, one word, for interesting articles, audiobooks, art, pomegranate recipes, and video. Today, we will talk about giants. Giants. We are not talking about the football team. Giants. The very word evokes a sense of awe, people as tall as buildings with the potential for utter destruction and the possibility that they may eat you like in much of mythology, like the giant in Jack the Beanstalk. My mom used to read me the story of Jack and the Beanstalk when I was a kid. Scared the you-know-what out of me. It was a fairy tale, but the original might be banned in the world of today, or at least rated PG-13. This podcast may not be for the weak-hearted, so a word of caution. Send the children out to play, grab a cup of coffee, and take a seat on the couch. You may want to put on your seatbelt. Jack and the Beanstalk, original version written in 1734. Once upon a time, a boy named Jack lived with his mother. All they had in the world was one cow. One day Jack's mother said, "We have no money for food. We have to sell the cow." So Jack took the cow to market. On the way he met a man. "If you give me your cow," said the man, "I'll give you some magic beans that are better than money." Jack thought the magic beans sounded wonderful, so he gave the man the cow. Then he ran home as fast as he could. "How much money did you get for the cow?" his mother asked. "I got something much better than money," said Jack, showing her the magic beans. "These beans are no good to us," cried his mother angrily, and she threw them out the window. When Jack woke up the next day, his room seemed darker than usual. He went to the window and saw that a huge beanstalk had grown up in the garden overnight. "I must find out what's at the top," he cried, rushing outside, and he began to climb the beanstalk. Up and up he climbed. At last he found himself in a bare, rocky wilderness. There were no plants or animals to be seen anywhere, but a long road led into the distance, and Jack began to walk along it. Towards evening, he came to a castle and knocked loudly on the door. "Could you give me some food and a bed for the night, please?" Jack asked the woman who answered. "Oh, no," said the woman. "My husband is a fierce giant who hates strangers." But Jack begged so hard that she let him in and gave him some supper. Just as Jack was enjoying some hot soup, he heard the giant coming. The woman quickly hid Jack in the cupboard. The giant stalked in and roared, "Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." "Nonsense," said his wife. "There is no one here," and she gave the giant his supper. When he had finished his supper, the giant bellowed, "Bring me my hen." His wife brought a little hen and put it on the table. "Lay," shouted the giant. Jack peeped out of his hiding place. To his amazement, every time the giant shouted, the hen laid a little golden egg. When he had 12 golden eggs, the giant fell asleep. As soon as all was quiet, Jack crept out of the cupboard, grabbed the little hen, and tiptoed out. Then he ran and ran until he was back at the top of the beanstalk. Quickly he climbed down and took the magic hen to his mother. How pleased she was. "Long ago, a wicked giant stole this hen from your father," she said. "Now that we have her back, our worries are over." Jack lived happily with his mother for a while, but he longed for adventure, and one day he decided to climb the beanstalk again. Just as before, Jack reached the castle towards evening, and once again the giant's wife hid him when they heard the giant roar, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread." After supper, Giant shouted, "Fetch me my money bags." His wife brought him some sacks filled with gold coins. The giant emptied the sacks onto the table and counted the coins over and over again. At last he put the money back in the sacks and fell asleep. Quick as a flash, Jack took the money and ran all the way home. His mother was delighted when she saw the money bags. "The giant stole this money from your father," she said. "You have done well to bring it back." Although Jack and his mother were now rich, Jack wanted to climb the beanstalk one last time. Everything happened just as before. This time the giant's wife brought in a beautiful golden harp. "Play," he roared, and the harp began to play soft music. The music was so gentle that it sent the giant to sleep. But when Jack crept out and seized it, the harp cried, "Master, master!" The giant woke up in a rage, just in time to see Jack disappearing through the door with the harp. "Stop, thief!" the giant roared. Now Jack had to run for his life. The giant took huge strides and was soon hard on Jack's heels. Scrambling down the beanstalk, Jack shouted as loudly as he could, "Mother, mother, bring the axe." When Jack's mother brought the axe, Jack seized it with both hands and aimed a mighty blow at the beanstalk. Thwack! The beanstalk toppled to the ground, and the giant tumbled down with an earth-shaking thud. So that was the end of the giant. Jack and his mother were never poor again, and they both lived happily ever after. My name is Jerry Robb, and I am an author and researcher. I write under the name J.L. Robb, and I have authored 11 books, including the 7-book series about the end times. I live in Duluth, Georgia. I read the book of Revelation when I was 10 in 1957, and I've been interested since about the amazing Bible stories, and especially giants. Have you ever wondered if giants really existed in our past? No matter what the culture or religion, if they go back long enough, there will be talk of a time when giants roamed the world. They weren't very nice guys, apparently, and most scholars write them off as mythology. The Bible had something to say about giants, known as the Nephilim, and are mentioned from Genesis to Jude. Here is the first mention, and takes place as early man was beginning to populate the known world at that time. When men began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of the men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of men and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." Genesis chapter 6, 1-4. About 1,000 years after the mention of these giants, Moses had an encounter. God speaks to him directly, as often happened to Moses, and told him to send out spies to the land of Canaan, which God was giving as a gift to the Israelites who escaped slavery in Egypt after 400 years. The spies headed out, but didn't like what they saw, and is explained in these verses. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Send out for yourself men, so that they may spy out the land of Canaan, which I am going to give you to the sons of Israel. You shall send a man from each of their fathers' tribes, every one a leader among them. Numbers chapter 13, verse 1. The spies returned and had this to say: "The land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there were of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." Numbers chapter 13, verses 30 to 33. The end result, the Israelites refused to take the fight to the giants out of fear, even though their God, who had proven quite formidable, was on their side. The consequence was a punishment, or discipline, as some like to call it, from God, who was angered by the lack of their faith. They spent the next 40 years wandering and fighting to survive in the surrounding desert wilderness. 10% of the time they were enslaved in Egypt. I never heard much about the Nephilim in Sunday school or church when growing up. I'm not sure why, because the story is very fascinating. The Bible is such an interesting book, and I think especially so for those with a scientific background. Some of the things and events described are unbelievable. One of the reasons so many in the scientific community are atheists, freethinkers, humanists, whatever is the word du jour, for I don't believe a bit of it. From Genesis to Jude, the Nephilim have always been a part of the picture. Most of the Bible scholars today believe these stories to be legends, though I am not sure why. Archaeologists have been finding the bones of very large people for hundreds of years. I had no clue what these verses about the sons of God meant. The sons of God saw our women and thought they were really hot. They then mated with them and had children. Not only that, the fallen angels believed, like much of the United States does today, anything sexual goes. If it feels good, do it. Who are these fallen angels? It would seem the fallen angels were heterosexual males. They chose any of the women who had desired and had children with them. The sons of God are described in the Bible as fallen angels, and in the book of Enoch as fallen angels and the Watchers. Nephilim is Hebrew for the offspring of fallen angels. Though the book of Enoch is not in the canonized Bible, it is included in some of the Orthodox scriptures. Many believe the book should have been included. It is an interesting read. Enoch was the great-grandfather of Noah, the seventh descendant of Adam. Genesis says that Enoch walked with God and had a special relationship. In the beginning, when earth is described in Genesis as formless, there was the heavenly host. Most of the heavenly host appear to be angels. The loveliest angel of all was Lucifer, according to Scripture. Lucifer eventually developed an attitude, thought he was equal to God, and decided he would rule for a while. God kept the universe, and God gave Lucifer the earth, and he became known as Satan, the devil, Beelzebub, Baal, the son of perdition, and a few others. Lucifer became the first fallen angel. After the early earth began to be populated, apparently other angels in the heavenly host who thought Lucifer got a rotten deal to begin with became disgruntled. They saw the pretty girls on Lucifer's earth and were envious. The Bible said lots of other things about the Nephilim and their size. David killed Goliath, the Philistine giant who was estimated to be 9 feet tall. Then there was Og. Og is described in the Hebrew Bible as a giant belonging to a group known as the Rephaim. The Rephaim were a mysterious group known for their great size and immense strength, often described as giants or the terrible ones. They inhabited parts of the land of Canaan. Og was described as a giant belonging to the last of the Rephaim. His bed was made of iron and was 15 feet long and 6 feet wide. Before the great flood of Noah's day, these Nephilim, the offspring of the fallen angels and the earthly women, were causing great violence across the land, so much so that God was totally fed up with mankind, the Nephilim, and most everything else. He decided to wipe the earth clean with a flood and kill all animal life and most plants. But Noah had God's attention because he was a righteous man. Lucky for all of us. However, some life did continue to thrive, the Nephilim, as described in Genesis 6:4 above. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward. So the Nephilim were here before the flood, and they were here after the flood, though their population began to dwindle and their size began to decrease over time. Is there any proof that these giants ever existed? The land of giants, the Tigris-Euphrates Valley, or the Mesopotamian Valley, is where it all started according to Genesis, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. It was also called the land of Noah. During the late 1950s in Turkey, a construction project in the Euphrates Valley uncovered many tombs and burial grounds containing the bones of giants. At two of the sites, human femurs, thigh bones, were found that measured nearly 4 feet long. A gentleman named Joe Taylor, director of the Mount Blanco Fossil Museum in Crosbyton, Texas, was commissioned to make an anatomically correct sculpture of the human being based on the size of the femur. Indications were that the man was 14 to 16 feet tall. Ancient Egyptian drawings include many giant figures. Some scholars who study how the Egyptian pyramids were built believe the Nephilim had a lot to do with it. They were big. Over the years, there have been photographs at some of the archaeology sites, but most photos found online have been doctored, and some make the giants appear 30 feet tall. There are photos of specific bones, and some are in various museums. Giants, fact or fiction? There is a lot of evidence beyond circumstantial that indicate the giants, the heroes of old, did exist. Why would the ancients have written about them, drawn pictures of them, and passed the information down through the generations? Did they just have so much free time on their hands that they could draw fictional pictures way back then? Painting, drawing, and writing was not an easy or inexpensive adventure at that time. No Walmarts around to buy pens and paper. There is evidence in many ancient cultures across the world that feature myths and legends about giants, extraordinarily large and powerful beings, often tied to creation myths, natural disasters, or moral lessons. Here's a look at giants in various ancient traditions. In Mesopotamia mythology, there were the Anunnaki. While not giants in all interpretations, the Anunnaki were described as powerful deities or semi-divine beings who came to Earth and were sometimes depicted as larger than humans. The Humbaba. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Humbaba is a giant who guards the cedar forest. He is portrayed as a monstrous, supernatural figure defeated by Gilgamesh and Enkidu. In Greek mythology, there were the Gigantes, the Greek term for giants. They were born from the earth and sky. The Gigantomachy, the mythological war between the gods and giants, was the central narrative about the struggle for cosmic order. Cyclops, one-eyed giants such as Polyphemus, who appear in Homer's Odyssey. They were known for their strength and skill in forging weapons for the gods. Titans, though not always described as giants in size, the Titans were primordial deities of great power and often depicted as towering over humans. In Norse mythology, there were Jotnar, frost and fire giants. The Jotnar were chaotic beings who often opposed the Aesir gods. They were not only giants, but also the embodiments of natural forces. Ymir, the primordial frost giant, was killed by Odin, and his body was used to create the world. Surtur, a fire giant who plays a role in Ragnarok, the Norse end-of-days prophecy. He wields a flaming sword and is fated to destroy the world with fire. In Hindu mythology, there were Rakshasas and deities. These beings are often depicted as giants or demon-like creatures who battle the gods. They were known for their immense size and magical powers. The Kumbhakarna, a brother of the demon king, Kumbhakarna was a giant with insatiable hunger and immense strength. In Celtic mythology, there were Fomorians, a race of monstrous giants in Irish mythology who represented chaos and darkness. They were defeated by the Tuatha De Danann, a race of gods or demigods. Balor, a leader of the Fomorians, Balor had a massive, destructive eye that could kill anyone it gazed upon. In Abrahamic traditions, there were Nephilim. Mentioned in the Bible, the Nephilim were described as the offspring of the sons of God and daughters of men. They were often interpreted as giant hybrid beings. Goliath, the famous Philistine giant defeated by the young David in the book of Samuel. There are others in other cultures, like Bantu and Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and the list goes on. Thank you for listening. We are in discussions with film producers about making The End Part 1, and then The End will come into a movie and on streaming services. I hope you will join the adventure to get from book to cinematic film on the big screen by visiting a couple of my pages to help support this effort. There are benefits. www.theendthebook.com is my book website for all you need to know in these end times as described by the Bible. And my Patreon page, www.patreon.com, The End Times Diaries, one word, for interesting articles, pomegranate recipes, art, audible books, and video. And when you get home tonight, check out your surroundings. The sounds you hear may be more than the wind rustling the trees. Again, I am Jerry Robb. I live in Duluth. I am a veteran and a member of the Civitan International and the American Legion. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast as we delve into the mysteries world of giants. Go to YouTube and look for the Nephilim and Giants, untangling the myths of the ancient world.
And now here are some common questions about giants in the Bible. Who were the giants in the Bible?
The giants in the Bible are often referred to as the Nephilim, Rephaim, Anakim, and other names. They were described as exceptionally large and strong beings.
Where are giants mentioned in the Bible?
Giants are mentioned in several passages, including Genesis chapter 6, verse 4. The Nephilim are described as mighty warriors and men of renown. Numbers chapter 13, verse 33. The Israelite spies report seeing giants, the descendants of Enoch. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verses 10 to 11, mentions the Rephaim, a race of giants. 1 Samuel chapter 17, Goliath, the Philistine warrior, is described as a giant.
Who were the Nephilim?
The Nephilim were the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men in Genesis 6, 1 through 4. There is debate over whether they were fallen angels or powerful human rulers.
How tall was Goliath?
According to 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 4, Goliath was 6 cubits and a span, about 9 feet 9 inches, or 2.97 meters tall. Some ancient texts suggest a shorter height of 4 cubits and a span, about 6 foot 9 inches, or 2.06 meters.
Were the giants wiped out?
Many were destroyed in battles with the Israelites, according to Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 11, Joshua chapter 11, verses 21 and 22. However, some survived in the time of King David, 2 Samuel chapter 21, verse 15 to 22.
Again, to join the journey to get the books made into cinematic film on the big screen, please visit www.theendthebook.com and visit the website for all you need to know about the end times on Jerry's Patreon page.